What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of This Week in Tiger Baseball. Yes, it was a crazy week if you were a Tigers fan. This week, we saw Austin Jackson get pulled off the field mid-game for yesterday, for the trade of David Price completion. We saw some bad baseball being played. The White Sox took 2 or 3 from us. And we saw a deadline come and go where, no lefty reliever was brought in. So a little bit a question right there. So let's start out with the big kahuna, the elephant in the room, the David Price trade. Now, I touched on a lot of this yesterday in baseball banter. And, for some of you guys that don't want to watch a 26-minute video, because I'm going to try to make this video on the shorter side, I'll touch on it again. Yesterday was the trading deadline, obviously, and the Tigers acquired David Price, obviously. They sent Austin Jackson and Drew Smiley and a minor league shortstop named Willie. I have no idea how you say his last name, but it's like Adam with an ES at the end of it, out of Detroit. Jackson goes to Seattle to go play for Lloyd McClendon, who is very familiar with Tigers' former hitting coach from 06 to last year. And Drew Smiley and the minor league shortstop, along with Nick Franklin, who's another minor league shortstop, head down to Tampa Bay. And I was honestly surprised with the haul that the Tigers had to give up to get David Price. I'm not saying it was a lot, but I'm also saying that Tampa Bay didn't get that much. This past winter meetings, there was a lot of talk about, what kind of haul is David Price going to need to go to a team. Seattle was always in on it. You heard a lot of rumblings about him. Walker, Paxton, Holtzen. I mean, some top flight guys in the Mariners system. They have a system that's plentiful that can produce prospects that are needed to get a big fish like David Price, and they would have had him for this year and next year. But that never happened. And for Price to get dealt, and all they get was Smiley, Franklin, and that Willie kid, we'll call him Willie A for the sake of it. I was kind of surprised because James Shields netted you Will Myers. Now, I know James Shields had 2 years left of full team control, as in, Price is a year and a half, but I was kind of surprised that the Tigers only had to give up 3 players. And, Austin Jackson was a big fan. He's a big fan favorite. He was a favorite of mine. It was really hard to watch him run out the field. And as soon as I was on Twitter when it happened, I was on Twitter all day yesterday. Literally, this was me all day yesterday. I was on my phone just going like this. I was on Twitter, just refresh, because there were so many conflicting reports. First you hear was the Pirates were in on him. First you hear was potentially the Dodgers, and then the Cardinals, and then you heard rumblings that there was almost a 3-team trade last week with the Mariners, Tigers, and Rays to get David Price, but it was pretty much, and you had all these other people like, oh, it's not going to happen, he's not coming. But, right around 2:30, and then that 3 o'clock hour, I mean, it really came to fruition. The Tigers getting Price. And, I'm not really so mad about losing Smiley. With getting David Price, a guy who is, a legit front end of the rotation guy, a legit left-handed ace, it poses some questions for the postseason roster now, who goes to the bullpen. Smiley, I was really banking on, if the Tigers didn't get another lefty reliever at the deadline, which they almost did. We'll touch on that here in a few. You could have had, Smiley dumped into the bullpen and boom, you got your lefty reliever for the postseason. Now that Smiley's gone, you're not dumping Price in there. You really don't have a lefty reliever. Pat McCoy got called yesterday. Blaine Hardy's done good work, but, do you trust him for the postseason? And Phil Koch and Ian Kroll, well, they're terrible. Kroll got sent back down. So, analyzing this trade, why I think this happened. Yesterday, during the trade deadline, the Athletics, who had already a plethora of pitching, were like, something, Billy Bean's just not screwing around. He's going for it this year because he knows he has a team that can win. So he goes, something, we got Yoenis Cespedes, we got plenty of offense still, we could supplement his offense, because Cespedes, let's face it, he's a good player, but I don't think he's as good as, people have hyped him up to be when he first came over from Cuba back in, 2012, I believe it was. Yeah. And, they dealt him to the Red Sox to get John Lester, and they also got, Johnny Gomes, another nice outfield bat who hits, he's not a good player, but that guy hits some big home runs. And if you don't believe me, ask the Cardinals in the World Series last year, because Gomes hit a monstrous home run for the Red Sox to help them win that series. So, Gomes has this thing about a knack about getting clutch hits, and he was already on the Oakland A's once, so, he's very familiar. And then the A's are so good. And they've had so much pitching this year, even when A.J. Griffin and Jared Parker go down. They get Lester to complement Kazmir, to complement Gray, to complement Samardzija, to complement Hamill. They're so stacked. Jesse Chavez, who's having a really good year, gets bumped into the bullpen. And they're like, their highest starter ERA right now is Jason Hamill at 3.87. Everyone else has an ERA of 3 or lower. That is how good their rotation is. And I'm not gonna lie, I was at work yesterday and I was following the trade deadline, like a friggin' crackhead looking for the next crack rock. I was that addicted to it. I see the trade happen and I'm just sitting there, man, how are we gonna beat the A's? I mean, seriously. The last couple of years the Tigers have had the advantage where, Justin Verlander shut them down. They had a bit more experience than a younger A's team. Last year Sonny Gray was their guy that, beat Verlander once and was really destroying the Tigers, netted them a couple of wins. But, Verlander outdueled them in the end, in the year before. They were a really young team, first time in the postseason since '06. So, they were a young team. Now they got that experience factor. They went out and they got a starter that's just absolutely money in the postseason. Go look at John Lester's postseason numbers. Go look at his World Series numbers. He's like top 5 in lowest ERA ever for World Series games. He is money in the postseason. And you got Sonny Gray, who's having an outstanding year, who was good last year in the postseason, only lost that decisive Game 5. And then you got guys like Scott Kazmir. And then you got, Jeff Samardzija, who's going to be, first time in the postseason this year. And then, they just have a team that's been there, done that for the last couple of years, a couple straight division titles. So I'm thinking, how are we going to beat this squad? So what does Dave Dombrowski do? He's like, fine, Billy Beane, whatever you can do, I can do better. The Tigers have a good rotation, even with Verlander the way that he's been. You expect him to be ready by the postseason like he was last year. He struggled, had his ups and downs, but then it came time. October rolled around, he was boom, he was money. Sanchez, he's had his problems too. Earlier this year he was dominating, and now it seems like he goes 5-6 innings and he's done. He's had a hard time, lasting past the 6th, even though he starts out very well. And then Scherzer has an ERA of like sub-2 over his last 9, and Kid Rick has been absolutely outstanding. Like I said, I didn't mind as much losing Drew Smyly. I know what he would have brought to the bullpen in the postseason. But Smyly, he's a perfect game through 6 innings last time against the Angels, and then this time out he has 11 hits through 5 innings. He's just been really inconsistent. And so you add David Price. And there's a couple reasons why I like this addition, because Price isn't that good, hasn't been good in the postseason at all. But you add another true frontline starter, and this is good for this year because now you have that another arm, who's better than John Lester, I feel. Who's been the best strikeout pitcher in the American League this year, best lefty in my opinion, in the American League this year. I mean, look at his last 2 months. His ERA is like a shade like over 160 or something like that. He's been absolutely filthy. He's been dominating, and so it's a perfect, hey, Billy Beane, whatever you can do, I can do better. And as soon as he actually completed the trade, he actually texted Billy Beane, you have 1 minute to acquire Chris Sale. I mean, Dombrowski's not screwing around. And he even said he knows he has a team that can win this year, and they're going all out to give this team the best chance to win. And I think another big reason why David Price comes into effect, or why it was a good idea, and why he did it, is because I think Dombrowski knows that after offering Max 6 and 144, and he turned it down, that there is not a likelihood that they will sign him long-term after the season is completed. But rival execs do believe that the Tigers have a legitimate shot at extending David Price long-term after this season. And right now is when Dombrowski, if he was going to do it, this is when he likes to extend players long-term. 1 year left, 2 years left on this contract. He tried to do it with Scherzer this past offseason, but it is what it is. So they feel there's a chance they can extend him long term after his season in 2015. They might do it this offseason. Who knows? And I also, with the Max Scherzer leaving, David Price is going to come in next year, and Tigers are going to get a comp pick for Scherzer too, so there's another nice player coming your way. Price is going to slot right into where Scherzer is and just, not miss a beat. So you're going to have another frontline arm. You're losing one, and Scherzer most likely this offseason, but you gain one in Price. So it's a win-win right there, for the Tigers. And, right now you just got to enjoy having Scherzer, Verlander, Sanchez, Price, and Porcello all in the same rotation. Because, I mean, we have the last 3 Cy Young Award winners in the rotation. That's not something you see ever. 3 consecutive Cy Young Awards by 3 different pitchers in the same rotation. I mean, not even the 90s Braves can say something like that. The pitching depth is stupid deep in the Tigers rotation. Now, where it's not stupid deep is their bullpen. Joakim Soria has looked absolutely terrible since coming over from the Rangers. Yesterday he had a bit of bad luck. Alex Avila, who his tenure's got to be coming to a close end here, because I've defended Avila a lot, but he's been really, really bad. Yesterday he went to go block a ball that Soria struck out Adam Eaton on, who Adam Eaton is a goddamn pain in the ass. He was a thorn in the side this entire series. And the guy, he ended up reaching first base, on a strikeout, and that led to an inning where the White Sox scored a couple of runs and, pretty much got the game because it was a 4-4 game at that point. And, but he's looked bad. His command it's not like it's been bad. He's been throwing strikes, but he's been throwing hittable strikes. Is pretty much what it is. And I don't know if it's because he's out of the ninth inning rule now, where he's in a role where he's expected to set up, be a seventh inning guy. That's affected him at all. But hey, it is what it is. I have a lot of faith in him. But what I don't have faith in is the left side of the bullpen. The lefties. Blaine Hardy has done very nice work since coming up, and a lot of people say, well, hey, this is the lefty move that you need, but I just can't withstill my faith in a kid that does he have 20 innings pitched in the big leagues yet, and he's supposed to, we get to the postseason, he's supposed to get out big left-handed hitters. I'm sorry, Andrew Miller, the Tigers actually came really close to acquiring, so Dombrowski was doing his work trying to get a lefty reliever for the bullpen, something they desperately needed, but the trade fell through. And the Orioles, who don't even need another lefty reliever because they have enough of them, and Britton and Mattis, got him as well. So now don't freak out completely. The non-waiver trade deadline is over, yes, but the Tigers still can do something in the waiver trading deadline. Last couple of years, Dombrowski, he's gotten Wilson Betemeat off the waiver trading deadline. He got Delman Young that 1 year off the waiver trading deadline. So I remember when he got Aubrey Huff off the waiver trading deadline. I believe that was in 2009. So Dombrowski does make his fair share of moves, so you still can get a bullpen arm that you need, especially for a lefty reliever. So we're a little surprised that one deal was not made. I know he tried to get Andrew Miller, but it's definitely a hole that they need to address. But I think once you get a lefty reliever in there, the bullpen's going to be fine. I think Soria is going to straighten out. He's just too good. Jabba, he's done such really nice work. Nathan, he hasn't really pitched that much in a while. But, his last couple times out, he's looked better, especially his last time out in Anaheim when he struck out the side. He looked really, really good. So I think from the right side, you're good. Albuquerque, he makes it interesting, but he's been getting it done for the most part, and Job has been so good. And I think Soria's going to straighten it out. Nathan, who knows? But that left side, you need someone like a Drew Smiley of last year who could get out lefties and righties consistently, because obviously Phil Koch and Ian Kroll is not the answer. And Blaine Hardy's doing good this year so far, but sample size. I can't stress that enough. And I would really have liked to got Andrew Miller, former Tiger. He was in that Miguel Cabrera trade. Someone that's got out lefties at just a dominating clip, and he gets out righties too. It would have been nice to see. So that's pretty much it. The Tigers, they've been on a bit of a losing streak lately. Their offense has been sputtering. They exploded for I think what was like 9 or 10 runs in the second game of the White Sox series. They exploded for 6 runs off of Hector Noesi in the first inning, and then Noesi ends up going 6 innings somehow because he had 2 innings where he threw a combined total of 9 pitches. So, he ended up having a good start, but the Tigers won. The White Sox ended up coming and taking 2 or 3. But, it pretty much right now is just holding the division until we get to the postseason because no one's going to overtake us. Kansas City was idle in the trading deadline, which blew my mind considering Eric Hosmer's on the DL right now. The Indians, they ended up trading away Justin Masterson, so they were actually selling and Asdrubal Cabrera. And I think Francisco Lindor is actually going to be called up, and watch him. He's going to be a really fun player to watch. He's really good. So, the Tigers, it's not are they going to win the division? It's if they're going to win the division. Basically, you just got to set up for the postseason at this point. It sounds cocky. It sounds early, but no, they're not. No one's catching the Tigers in this division. They're just not. They're too deep. Their pitching's too stacked. Even with a bad bullpen. But I still think Dombrowski has more than enough time to get a lefty reliever in the pen, someone solid that's going to help solidify it and really calm it down. I do still like the addition of Soria. When you add the addition of Price, it really counters what the A's did nice. But I'm going to go on record and say this. I think if the Tigers and A's played right now for all the marbles, I still would give the A's an advantage over the Tigers, simply for the fact their bullpen is shut down. They just have nothing but great arms in the back end of that. And that rotation is absolutely filthy. It really, really is. And, I think the Tigers lineup, probably from an offensive standpoint, is a little bit better. But from a complete team, I honestly think the A's still have the advantage, and they have done a lot. And it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle, especially if the bullpen stays the same, for the Tigers to overtake them, because Billy Beane is going all out. He's not going to let himself get eliminated by the Tigers this year. He's trading away an all-star outfielder to get another pitcher and John Lester, Yoenis Cespedes to Boston. He's not screwing around. He's making sure that the A's are going to have all the chance in the world to win this year. And I feel that even with the addition of Price, I know how deep the rotation is. I know how good Verlander is against the A's. I still think that if the season ended today and we were in the AS against the Athletics, and you had to go to a 7-game series, I truly still believe that the Athletics are the better team right now. They're just a complete team. with that bullpen, that rotation. They throw good arm after good arm after good arm at you every single night. You know, the lineup is really good, even minus Cespedes. You know, Brandon Moss is having an outstanding year. You know, Coco Crisp is a good player. Josh Donaldson, you know, he doesn't have the highest average in the world or on base percentage, as a matter of fact, but he still hits, you know, hitting you 20 bombs or so. And then Stephen Vogt and Derek Norris have been very good behind the plate for him. I know Jed Lowry's having a bit of a down year as well. But I like the Athletics right now, and I still feel as they're the best team in the baseball. I still feel as if, you know, if the Tigers had to play them, I'm still scared, even with the addition of Price. So they're good, and I respect Billy Beane for what he's doing. So Athletics are going all out, and it's going to be a dogfight. And if the Tigers and A's don't meet up somehow in the postseason in the ALDS or ALCS, it's going to be a damn shame. It's going to be a disappointment because it's going to be interesting. Beane and Dombrowski going at it head-to-head. Two absolutely outstanding teams. It's going to be interesting. So that's all I got for you guys today. David Price is on the Tigers. Say that to you for a second. I was outside. I was up in a field by my house hitting with my brother yesterday, and I'm just standing there in the outfield going, God, David Price is a Tiger. Just thinking about this rotation, it just blows my mind, like how good it is. I mean, the depth, the quality, the kind of pitchers we got. Blows my mind, and it's awesome to say, and I can't wait to watch them start. So that's all I got for you guys today. David Price is a Tiger. Don't be too shocked that don't get too mad that there's no lefty in the pen yet. Still got the waiver deadline, trade deadline at the end of August. You can still make trades, but it's got to go through the waiver wire. So Dombrowski still has a shot at getting a lefty reliever in there. You know, Soria hasn't been pitching that well, but I think he's going to straighten out. I think Dombrowski's got this. He's not going to go out and get David Price and then leave the bullpen the way it is. He just can't. He can't. He won't. I don't see it. So that's all I got for you guys today. Have a good one.